Notre Dame versus Miami of Florida. This is a New Year's Eve game. Marco, who do you like and why?
Well, I'm going to look at the total in this game rather than the side. I like the game to go over. We've got two teams entering this game at 7-5, but they're entering opposite ends of the spectrum. Notre Dame won 6 of their last 8 games. Miami of Florida limped down the stretch, lost a horrible game at the end of the season to South Florida, which probably was the nail in the coffin for the head coach of Miami who got fired. But when you look at Notre Dame, you look at the last 3 games, and people are going to say, oh, this Notre Dame defense, they're playing awesome, and they might look at this game to be an under. If you look more closely at those final 3 games, they played Utah, Southern Cal, and Army, and they held all of those teams.
All right, so at first glance, you're thinking Utah was a top 10 team for much of the year, and that USC is a national power, but you're saying that's not how you look at it.
Not how I'm looking at it. They caught Utah the week after Utah had that big game against TCU. Utah come into Notre Dame. They were as flat as a pancake in that game.
Plus, to some degree, Utah was somewhat exposed. I really liked them against Boise, but it would seem now every tough game they played, they got thrashed.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that, Boise. That's what I couldn't remember when it came on air. We had a bet last week on air. It was the Boise-Utah game.
Must be nice that you make so much money that a $500 bet is something you forget about.
You do. It's just, it's the holiday season, No, but I'm not letting you off the hook.
All right, so
back to this. In the Southern Cal game that we talked about when they played, Barkley was hurt in that game, so that hurt the offense for Southern Cal. And then they also played Army in that stretch, which is a team that runs the option, which generally does very well. But Notre Dame faces the option every year because they play Navy every year, so they're one of the better teams to defend it.
All right, so this is actually third level handicapping. First level, you look at scores, you have a general impression of the team. That's what the extreme squares do. Second level is you dig a little deeper, look at the number of turnovers, look at the yardage and say, oh, 4 turnovers, maybe this was a deceiving score, or maybe there was a certain other situation that's obvious but would affect the score. You're going the next level and saying, I'm looking at situational schedules where Utah's performance was going to be affected. I'm also looking at injuries, which is not readily apparent. It is at the time, but as the weeks go by, you forget who was playing what game. And you're saying people that glance at this Notre Dame team are going to be overly impressed with them and specifically their defense.
Correct. And I'm going to go back to the beginning of the year. Notre Dame defense got torched at the beginning of the season, and they had problems with teams that were athletic and could throw the ball, and that is Miami. Miami is a team that's got team speed. They're going to be able to make some big plays on offense. I see this ending up being a shootout. I like the over. I've got it 57 total points in the game. I got it a 3-point game either way, 30-27, Notre Dame with the call.
3-point game either way, what does that mean?
This is going to be a close game, shootout. It's going to be decided by a field goal late.
But you have Notre Dame winning.
I have Notre Dame winning,
but they're getting 3, and you have them winning by 3.
I have them winning by 3, but I think there's better value in the total.
Okay. Now, I really would say that the 2 bets I've made the most in the last 3 or 4 years have been fading the Cowboys and fading Notre Dame. Just really, this is, at home especially, Notre Dame's been like 30% ATS over like 5 years or plus. I'm not so sure that, and actually you've kind of talked me off it. I was leaning pretty heavily towards Notre Dame because I did look at those last 3 games when I was handicapping this. And I did say, wow, this is a team that seems to be coming on. And it really does fit the model of a trending team with a new coach that pushing into the bowl and being excited about this opportunity. Kelly first year, and I think Notre Dame to some degree, though what you're saying might mitigate this point a little bit. We harped early in the year that programs with a new coach have high expectations. They usually underperform early, and they start trending, if it's a good coach, trending upwards in the second half of the season, right when everyone's disappointed with them. I think that you could make that case about Notre Dame, though, again, maybe mitigated by your key point, but that third level look at the schedule. Also, just talking about Notre Dame's futility ATS, 1 of 7 in bowls, where it's a more public game, so those marquee teams get even more action. I think that fading the marquee teams in the bowls is even better typically than during the regular season. But there's one thing that's causing me, or two things that's causing me pause of liking Miami here, or three things. The uncertainty of the coaching change. It's hard to know exactly how to handicap these things, and I was way off on the Fresno State game early.
I was with you.
I think a lot of people were. Yeah. And, you know, it's not a science for sure. I do know that it's very rare for a coaching change to be a positive. At best, it's a neutral. Most of the time, it's a negative. So if you, let's say you have, you know, a negative mark against Miami there. Number two, Notre Dame has covered 6 of 7 as an underdog. I can't remember the last time there was a stat about Notre Dame covering a lot of games. They seem to have some fight in them this year. And lastly, I got a feeling that the Kelly factor is this team's excited right now, especially a reprise of the Catholics versus convicts, and that's just going to be a general, you know, back from the 80s. That's going to be a general excitement about this game. All that said, that takes me from fading Notre Dame to being probably a pass on the game, where typically, you know, in a way, and I've been doing this on some of my webcam videos, sometimes you enter a game knowing it's going to be the dog or nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, it's going to be hard to ever find value on Notre Dame. The question is there value on the other side, or is it a no-value game? So as much as I typically fade Notre Dame, I would probably have the slightest lean to them this year.
One point that I will make, one of the stats that jumped out that you said was Notre Dame in the bowls, where they were, I think you said 1 in 7. One thing to consider is a lot of the years Notre Dame was in a bowl that they really didn't deserve.
This is ATS.
This is ATS.
What I'm saying is if they're playing a high state and they should be getting 9 points, then it's just like any other game.
It is, but I think the situation this year, they're in a bowl that they deserve to be in. A lot of those other years, they got a BCS bowl just because of their name.
Well, yeah, but true, but that caused them to be a significant underdog. I remember a couple years ago, maybe a little bit more now, against LSU, and they were a huge underdog in that game. So, I mean, Vegas is making it where it's the line, ATS is expectation, and they've underperformed in bowls. All right, now it's your turn to continue the conversation in the comment section with Marco and me. And next up, we're going to be talking Michigan State versus Alabama on New Year's Day.